So welcome to a new Game Stuff episode, and I've been doing these episodes now for 17 years, which is hard to believe. And I just want to say something before I begin. I really love doing these episodes. It's not just to show all the stuff, it's to talk about all the stuff and the place in history of this stuff and what it means to me personally and what it means to a lot of you guys. And that's where I'll bring you in. What have you picked up lately in the way of new game stuff? A brand new video game, an old video game, a figure, an art book? Let me know down below. So there's a lot to talk about today, and we'll start off with a few games I showed in another episode, a Games I Was Playing episode, Metal Gear Solid Delta, and Gears of War Reloaded. And it's been really fun to jump back into two games that I loved so far back in the past. I did an entire episode on it. I really recommend watching it. I show some old footage of me playing Metal Gear Solid 3 for the first time back in 2003, which is crazy. So it's called Games I'm Playing episode. Check that one out. But I was really happy to revisit these games because they're such beloved games from my past. So the next game is an interesting and a funny one because one night I was sitting thinking back to the good old NES days, that we all grew up in. A lot of us did anyways. And I was thinking back to some classic covers. And I was like, oh yeah, that game Iron Sword. I love that game. I used to watch, Rob play it all the time at his place. Lots of legendary stories about the game, actually. Maybe we'll get into it one day. And I remember this one cover and I was like, oh, I must have the game. And I went up to my NES games. I'm like, I don't have this game. So I picked this game off eBay, got it for a reasonable price. And that is for Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2. This is a wild cover. They don't do them like this anymore. Now they would just do artwork. But this is Fabio. He was kind of like a model guy at the time, and they got him to do the cover, and it was weird at the time, but I gotta say, we loved barbarian movies back in the 80s. We loved them. There were so many amazing barbarian movies to watch. Conan and the Beastmaster, so much stuff. And it was funny to get this game again just for the cover. The cover art is absolutely hilarious and a product of a different time. They will never get somebody to pose like this now for a cover, and especially such a strange character as Fabio. So I had my friend Andrew on, and he did his top 10 games of all time list, and one of the games shocked me. I was really shocked because it was such an older game from like 1987 that we, back when I was over at his place when he was playing it. And that is for the Intellivision version of Dungeons and Dragons. Right here, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And in that episode, Andrew did an amazing thing of bringing up how he was playing this game in his basement. And I turned off the machine when he was playing it because we were just being stupid kids. I was being a silly kid to him. It's kind of a maze style of game. It's kind of interesting. I personally, even back then, didn't particularly love the game, but Andrew loved this game. And because of Andrew's love for it, I picked up a physical copy of it just because it kind of reminds me of that time with Andrew in his basement and turning his machine off. And I have a few older games to talk about that I just picked up. One of them is called Fairy Dust Story, right here. And I gotta say, I was looking through a PC Engine book and I saw this and I was like, I remember this name from back in the day. This is a Japanese only PC Engine game. And I'm like, what is this game all about? And I'm like, oh, it's a role-playing game. So I picked it up and it showed up and I started to play the game. What can I say? It's not really a role-playing game. It's kind of a simulation style game that you walk around and you talk to people and there's singing in it. In fact, the entire opening of the game, you're just looking at this pixelated character kind of like dancing like this, and there's like singing that goes on for like a good 3 minutes, and you're just sitting there going, well, isn't this novel? And then you kind of remember back that at this time period, these style of graphics and music or singing in a video game were unheard of. This is like during still the NES era. And it was crazy that a character could be dancing on the screen and singing. I thought it was quite funny, and then you start running around town, just talking to people. It's a novelty, and you know me, I love the PC Engine so much, so it was more of a curiosity. And so it's kind of interesting to sit for an afternoon and just kind of explore the game, even though it's in full Japanese, just to find out what it was about. And again, I was looking through another book of Super Famicom box art, and I gotta say, the Super Famicom has some of the greatest box art of all time, and I saw this game here, Elferia, and the full title is A Fantastic Theater, Elferia. And the claim to fame here is, this is artwork by the great artist of Famitsu magazine. And Famitsu magazine is a Japanese video game magazine, and he was very, very popular at the time. And so he lent his hand to doing all of the character designs for this role-playing game right here. And what do I have to say about it? I've got a lot to say about it. A lot of us grew up in the Super Nintendo times, and a lot of us complained that we didn't get a lot of games from Japan. We had no idea of the amount of games that we did not get. Elferia is a great example of that, and this is a great looking RPG, great big characters on the screen, walking around, getting into combat, exploring, having a great cinematic opening. This game is fantastic, and I often think if there's different realities, there's a reality that we got this game in, some quantum reality out there, that we were playing this game and we got it back in the day. And we were all like, you know, and it would be talked about now. Oh, Elferia is a classic on the Super Nintendo. It was a bit of a classic in Japan, but it's one of those games that never made it out here, like a lot of Super Famicom games and a lot of PC Engine games. There was a lot of role-playing games that were left in Japan that we never got to discover. That's why I had to pick up that PC Engine Fairy game, because I want to see what we missed out on. It's a fascinating thing because we only got a small amount of stuff, but there was so much. And what it would have been, to get this. And you know what they would have done back then? They would have redrawn this cover to make it appropriate for an American audience, which is just ridiculous, because the artwork is what sold it for me. Another month has gone by, and another collection of Neo Geo games has come out, Volume 5 and Volume 6. And as you know, I've been collecting all of these because, I'm a huge Neo Geo fan, and it's really kind of neat to be able to collect them all on one system. This is all for the Nintendo Switch, and each individual collection has a number of games, up to like 10 games per collection, and some of my favorites are on here. On Volume 5, it has the first Neo Geo home console game I ever bought. I bought the system, and it came with the game Art of Fighting 2. It wasn't a pack-in, but when I bought it off some people back in the day, it came with that game. And I remember bringing that game home, and I was like 21 years old. It's 30 years ago, folks, 30 years ago. I'm putting it in, and I couldn't believe the size of the characters on the screen, and just looking at the backgrounds and how it's scaled. It was remarkable. In playing this game the other day, I thought it still holds up really, really well. It was very difficult, very hard game. But all the Neo Geo fighting games were at the time, and really great to have that in the collection, and it brought back a lot of memories from 30 years ago. And also from 30 years ago, Burning Fight is on here. And this is a long forgotten Neo Geo clone fighter of Final Fight. So Final Fight came out in the arcades, and they're like, hey, we want to have our own version of it. So they created Burning Fight, and it's a pretty competent fighter. Obviously, I prefer Final Fight, but it was the Neo Geo's Final Fight at the time, and it was kind of the novelty. And in Volume 6, a number of games on here as well. Really great to play Real Bout, Fatal Fury. What a chaotic, insane game that is. It was so fast and furious when I was playing it. I was like, wow, especially playing City of the Wolves. I'm like, this is completely crazy. City of the Wolves has a nice pace to it. And, Real Bout was totally wild. It was also neat to play Samurai Showdown 4 on here. And just to see that again going, look at Samurai Showdown 4. And you can't tell me that doesn't hold up so well after all of these years. It does. And there's a number of other games on these collections, and I really think they're worth it to pick up. I've really been enjoying it to collect the Neo Geo all in one space and to have all of these games from my past. And a couple of other collections. This is for the Polymega. One of them is the Bad Dudes collection, and the other is the Heavy Barrel collection. Now, for anybody who grew up in the 80s, Bad Dudes was the way to go. It was the arcade brawler that you couldn't believe. It was a side view action game where you're trying to rescue the president. And I always loved it, we're bad, they're the bad dudes. It was so stereotypical 80s. And of course, you're just fighting wave after wave of ninjas. And also included on here is Crude Buster, Two Crude Dudes. This was an arcade game that got ported to a lot of systems like Mega Drive and Genesis. And I've got to say, that was the reason why I picked up the game. It is so 80s. You're like a punk rocker in a post-apocalyptic world, just going through wave after wave of enemies, picking up cars and throwing them. And it's got a lot of really funny catchphrases. And something else kind of crazy is I drew this nearly 6 months ago. I was sitting with my daughter in here and I was looking at some artwork of the game and I decided to draw my own version. I drew one of the Crude Dudes. Why? I don't know. I just thought it was so funny. I really like the character designs, and I'm sitting there drawing with my daughter. We usually sit here and draw, and I just decided to draw this, and then I'm like, I've got to get this collection of games. And so it was really great revisiting Crude Dude and the 80s there in all of its crazy style. Now here is a collection that is really interesting to me, and the reason why I picked it up is for Heavy Barrel alone. Now, have any of you ever played Heavy Barrel? It was an old 1980s arcade shooter, an overhead shooter, and you could play it as 2 players or as 1. And I got a lot of memories, and this is a strange one for me. It hits deep for me. That I remember walking into many different resorts with my parents, like hotels and different places we would visit. And this game was always there in a corner somewhere. And I would always go up to it. And you'll look at the graphics now and I understand, you'll be like, well, that looks okay, that's pretty cool. But you have to understand, there was a time where we didn't have 3D gaming the way it is now. And this was cutting edge. And I want you to try to take yourself into a headspace where you can take yourself to a place where this was state of the art. And this was state of the art. And you go through the level fighting wave after wave of enemies. And it was kind of neat because the joysticks, one of them was to move your character around. And you can move your character around, and you can also move the gun around with this one. So you can spin your character around to shoot. And it was remarkable. I thought it was such a cool thing. I love the animation. I love the way characters died. I loved all the power-ups. You're always trying to get your main gun together. You get it to piece together in the top of the screen. But I just loved all the other power-ups that you would get, fighting wave after wave of enemies. And there's just something about Heavy Barrel that is a very heavy memory and a deep memory for me of traveling with my parents when I was really young, going to different places and always seeing that arcade game and how much it always stuck with me. And over the years, there's never been a great way to play it, so I was happy to get it for the Polymega. Attack! Now, speaking of Polymega, they reached out to me, and they've never reached out to me before. And they're like, hey, we want to send you something. And I'm like, Really? And I've always bought the Polymega stuff on my own. I really like the machine, and in fact, I love the machine. It's one of my main go-tos for, even though some of these games I've been showing today, I captured on the Polymega. I put my cartridges in, and I played them that way. And so I was like, okay, sure, like, what is it? And it's for the Polymega gun controller right here. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's for light games. And they're like, just make sure you update your system to the latest firmware. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I have one light game, and that is for Virtual Cop. And so I'm like, well, let's give this a go. And I haven't played a light gun game in years. And I gotta say, I'm one of the guys who used to go to the arcade and play these all the time. And so a lot of the old light gun games I can't really play on my modern TVs and things like that. So this game works on modern TVs with the Polymega and all your old games. So say you have some Saturn games like I do for Virtual Cop, I put it in and I tested it out. And I want to say, first of all, something fascinating. I did the training mode in Virtual Cop, and I'm shooting, and I was just doing so terribly. And I'm like, oh, maybe this doesn't work properly. And then I started to play the main game, and I realized something. No, I have to aim a lot better. And I've been so far out of playing light gun games that it was not the gun or the game or the TV, it was me. So I started to play Virtual Cop again, and what a memory road that was to go back in time. And my wife comes out and she's like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm playing this light gun game with this old game that I have called Virtual Cop. And she's like, that's amazing. That's so cool. And she's like, does it work with like all old light gun games, like, you know, for duck hunt and stuff? And I'm like, I think it does. And so that's the kind of the claim to fame. If you have a whole bunch of old games, you can play them on the Polymega with this light gun, and it works extremely well. I've tested it myself, and I had a really fun afternoon revisiting a game I played in the arcades and I played on the Saturn, and being able to play on a modern TV was really something else. Reload. So, okay, I saw these and I had to pick them up, especially playing the brand new Shinobi game. I picked up Joe Musashi here from Revenge of Shinobi. This is like a toy version of that character of Joe Musashi. One of my favorite games of all time on the Genesis, Revenge of Shinobi. And I was like, what? There's a toy of this character? And I'm like, I have to pick this up. And I unfortunately had to pick it up off eBay because it is no longer around my area or anything like that. And I didn't know about it. It's just one of those things I didn't know about. And being an old Sega fan, I had to grab it. And there was another one I had to get as well. And the other one I had to pick up was for Gilius Thunderhead, right here, the great dwarf character from Golden Axe. The great game that was released in arcades. I first discovered it in an arcade with my friends. We walked in and we're like, oh my God, you know, harkening back to what I was talking about with those, barbarian movies, there was a barbarian video game called Golden Axe, and it was awesome. And then finally, we got a home port of that arcade game to the Sega Genesis, and it was a really, really big deal back then. And you know what? It's a really big deal now, and I've heard that they're working on, I think I've seen some early trailers, it's a long time ago now, it feels like that they're working on another Golden Axe game, and I couldn't be more thrilled. And when I saw this, I was like, you know, I've got to support my old love of Golden Axe. And okay, I was walking through Walmart a couple of weekends ago, and I saw this with my daughter, and I can show the picture because she's wearing a mask, so you can't see her, but I found this in Walmart. I was just walking around, and I'm like, what is going on? It's the year 2025, and there's Altered Beast stuff in a Walmart? And so what this is, I'm gonna open this up. I haven't opened it up yet. It's a kind of like a cartridge that transforms into a diorama of the game itself. And let's just have a look here. How could I not pick this up? Like, how could I not pick this up? It's so fascinating. And all the characters are all in there. The transformations and the first boss character. So cool. So cool. And I just want to say that I first discovered Altered Beast in an arcade in Hawaii in like 1988. And I was there with my parents. And one fateful night, I walked around the corner and there's this beautiful arcade. Oh, the lights of which I've not seen since, I swear. With all of the brand new arcade machines at the time. It was just glittered, it was just beautiful. And I walked in, and there's a big screen, like a kind of arcade machine, and it had Altered Beast on it, and I could not believe the size of the characters, I couldn't believe the transformations, and I couldn't believe the animation. And I get little shivers thinking about it. It was so cool. It's like these little moments that made me solidify as a video game fan for life. And so anyways, that's kind of like what the diorama looks like. Put together there, you get to create the graveyard with the Beast character and the boss of that level. And it was so cool Christmas morning getting my Sega Genesis and a copy of Altered Beast. And I know Altered Beast has become a bit of a meme over the years, but I love it still to this day, and it still has a lot of energy for me. So the next couple of items are some of the few items that my friend Jimmy Hoppa sent me from Japan. He owed me a lot of money for shipping, and he's like, do you want a mystery box or do you want the money? And I'm like, I'll take a mystery box. And so I put out an episode on for my members only on the channel, and I showed everything that he had sent me. And I just want to show you guys, because some of this stuff is gold, like this item right here. This is amazing stuff. Look at this. A Suikoden clock. Now, this floored me, and I've got to talk to Jimmy of when this was released. Is this an older one? Is this a newer one? I don't know. I don't care. This is amazing. This is one of the first RPGs I ever picked up on the PlayStation 1 for Suikoden. There's been a collection of them released now, but all of these characters really mean something to me. I remember them so very, very well, collecting a lot of them as well, and creating your party members. It was something else. This was a very special game on the PS1 back in the day, and I just want to thank my friend Jimmy Hoppa. Check out his channel if you haven't. Jimmy Hoppa. He does a lot of really great videos and covers a lot of great Japanese-only style games. And he also sent me something else that, to me, for one man is one man's junk, for another man is his gold. And that is, he sent me the Japanese Famitsu magazine from 1994 for Final Fantasy VI. Right here, we got Terra on the cover here, and I've always thought that cover had some magic to it, taking almost like the pixelated character and bringing it into real life. And remarkable stuff getting this Famitsu magazine, because we had talked about it quite a lot, and I said, I love that Famitsu magazine so much. I mean, it really means a lot to me, and it harkens back to nearly 31 years ago that I played Final Fantasy VI. It was released as Final Fantasy III in this country, and just to be able to leaf through it and to see what the Japanese were seeing at the time for coverage, because coverage back then was in weekly Famitsu magazines. And you even look at the back cover, Super Metroid there, a Super Metroid advertisement. Isn't that so cool? I love it. So I want to thank Jimmy Hoppa once again. And he also sent me something else that kind of floored me. I might not be able to pronounce this right. Dora Gonia Story, right here, by Yoshiteru Tsujino. And as you know, one of my favorite character designers of all time, and he sent me his manga that he did. He did a manga on his own, and get this, even something crazier, it's signed by him right there. It's signed for him. And Jimmy gave me his copy because he knows how much I love this artist. And the manga is really nice. It's a really sweet little manga here about a kid learning how to fly with some dinosaur creatures. Remarkable stuff, and I think he colored it all himself. And one of my favorite character designers of all time did my favorite character, as you know, of Kabuki. And I want to thank Jimmy once again for sending me this. And we're closing up with a couple of books and a tabletop game, which will be kind of fascinating. As you know, I like to collect strategy guides from the 80s and 90s of games that I really loved. It's kind of one of those package deals where I had the game and then I can own the strategy guide. And I picked up this for Wave Race Blue Storm, which was released on the GameCube. A lot of fond memories of the release of the GameCube, having to sell my GameCube back to EB Games and then buying it back a week later because I couldn't pay my rent at the time. because I just lost my job. And I eventually got my GameCube back a week later, and this is one of the launch games, Luigi's Mansion and Wave Race, and I was so thrilled to play Wave Race. I always remember playing it back then in my little apartment, and my mom was staying with me for a couple of weeks at that time, and I remember sitting there playing it, feeling really depressed that I didn't have a job, and I was just like, John, just enjoy the game. Just enjoy the game. And the game was kind of like very tranquil for me, and it kind of made me relax a little bit during that time, which is always hard not having a job. And having the strategy guide is really cool, just to be able to flip through and see some of the artwork from back then, you know, the early 2000s. It's just wild to see. And just to see some of the tracks and it's kind of a revisit of that game in a different way, through kind of a more of a visual medium that is an actual strategy guide book. And they hardly make these anymore. In fact, they really don't. And I picked up another art book, and this is for Rival Schools right here. And this is Rival Schools Official Complete Works. Now, I don't know what it's like for you guys. I really want to hear from you down below, because I feel that Rival Schools is a very forgotten game now, a fighting game by Capcom, and it's a wonderful fighting game. I even looked at I was looking at some reviews of it back in the day in some of my video game magazines, and it got rated a little lower than I think it should have. And I've got to say, this game did it for me. I really found it fascinating. It was kind of this Japanese high school setting with the teachers fighting against the students at times. It was over the top. And there was something that really stood out to me by, the good old Capcom of that time, was the character designs were amazing. It was just, they were on fire. Every character they created for this game was incredible and memorable. And I just love the combos. I love the combined attacks that you would do with your fellow teammates. And it was a great game overall for the PS1. Obviously it was arcade as well. It went to Dreamcast. Great stuff. And the amount of artwork that they have created for this game, it's nice that they captured it all in one art book here. And there's something about this time period that you just don't see anymore. You don't see, Capcom doesn't really take risks like they were taking back then, where they create an entire brand new fighting game, 3D fighting game, with all these unique characters. And I'd love to see Capcom make a return to Rival Schools, but I don't know if we'll ever see that, but I can still love it back in the past. And one last thing, a tabletop game. I had to show this as another alternative to Dungeons & Dragons. Everybody always says Dungeons & Dragons, even I always do. But there's a lot of other great games out there, and I really want to highlight some of these. I bought this the second it was released. I'm like, I must have this, and that is for Castles and Crusades, the fantasy role-playing game, and this is the starter set for beginners. And I'm not a beginner, but I always love buying beginner, sets. And I just want to say something. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look at that artwork. I'm telling you, Dungeons & Dragons doesn't put out artwork nearly this good anymore. And I bought it almost alone for the artwork. And it comes with its own dice here. And a nice little starter set. These little starter sets are great for people who are new to RPGs, to tabletop RPGs. I know right here is how to do character creation. And let's have a look at that artwork right there. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that this really captures what old Dungeons and Dragons used to capture for me, that kind of fantasy feeling. And I feel that they really captured it from Troll Lord Games. And I just love this stuff, and their artwork is really, really nice, all that stuff. And here we go, a couple more things going on here. How to direct the game. And this is how to learn how to play a tabletop game. I wish everybody could come over here and we could play some tabletop games, and I could show you how to play them if you've never have, because they're so much fun. For me, it's always a bit difficult getting my friends together, so I always play usually with Kim on a lot of these games. Into the Dark, a little scenario that you can play with your fellow friends. And here at the back is always welcome stuff. Character sheets. And it's look at the character sheets. I really like them. Very, very simple. Very, very easy to do. Very, very easy to create. And I just wanted to give a little highlights to another game that isn't Dungeons and Dragons. That's out there called Castles and Crusades, the fantasy role-playing game. Yeah, not an expensive starter kit as well. Everything you need to play the game is kind of here. And if you want to, get into the later games, they have books for that as well. But this is a good way to start. So guys, I had a lot of fun talking about some of these items, some of these things that I picked up. They all mean something to me. As you can see, a lot of them have, harkenings back to the past, some to the far past. And I'll ask you, what have you picked up in the way of new game stuff? Have you picked up a new figurine, a new amiibo, a new book, a new game, an old game? Let me know down below. So anyways, guys, until next time.